have I overstayed? Is it actually a good idea to continue, stay on here, or should I look out for other kinds of opportunities? What are the 3 reasons you should not stay at the same company, work in the same role, especially for too long? Number 1 has to do with your compensation, which is slow earning growth. If you stay at the same company, same organization for too long, chances are that your income will increase very slowly. Most companies have a rather rigid compensation structure, and the larger the company gets, the more rigid it will become. The more policies they have, the more rules and regulations, the bigger the HR department is, the more layers of management are involved in determining who gets paid what. So this whole thing gets very rigid, and it makes them not able to flexibly adapt to what employees actually demand from them. They're just not that flexible to adjust to whatever is the current market rate. And this is one example. The percentage by which your income can increase might be capped. So it might not be an absolute number, but there might be a policy, for example, where every half year your salary cannot increase more than 5% or not more than 10%. It's different from company to company. Go and talk to your HR or your manager and find out what are actually the limitations to income increase in your company or in your department, so that you are perfectly clear how far you can go when it comes to income. The second reason is more psychological. When you're in a company for too long, there is a tendency for the company to take you for granted. And it might sound rather mean, but it's just a fact. It's just a reality and how things are. So this is what usually happens to highly performing individuals in companies. They're very driven, very dedicated, and managers or management assigns them additional tasks and additional projects, and usually these employees, especially when they're very young, will just take on these new projects without demanding or negotiating a promotion or a salary increase. So what that means is that you will experience an increased workload first before getting any kind of benefit, which actually is fine, but this is the problem. Look at it from the perspective of the employer or the manager. If you were a manager and you had an employee and you were able to increase their workload without giving them additional compensation, then why in the world would you think that you would need to pay them more? Anyway, they're already doing it right now. They are already voluntarily taking on a bigger workload. So there is no real incentive at all for the employer to really rush and increase that salary of yours. Maybe they might do it eventually, but they might also be really taking their time. It is really psychological, because if they're already getting you to do the work that they want you to do, why would they need to go out of their way to fight for a higher salary? Perhaps they might need to go to HR, or they need to go to their manager and fight for that higher salary. Many people found out in the end that they have a much better chance of increasing their salary, their overall compensation, by simply moving to another company. Usually they will have a better chance of earning much more, not just making a 5%, 10% salary increase, but even getting 20, 30%, and even 100% is not unheard of, especially if all this while you've been severely underpaid. I want to share with you a poll that I found on Twitter where people were asked this question: in your experience, is switching jobs rather than staying put a better way to make more money? The answer is an astounding yes. 78.7% agreed that in their experience, if they wanted to make more money, it's a better idea to switch jobs rather than just staying put. If I stay at this company for a bit longer, would I be able to achieve my financial goals? Does this company offer enough opportunity for a salary increase or negotiating compensation and other benefits? Or is it just simply a fixed thing, 5% per year and nothing beyond that? Number two is that if you stay in a company for too long, it might limit your learning potential. When you've been in a company for 5 years or 10 years, especially when you've been in the same role all this while, then at some point you might realize that you're not really learning anything new. You've been doing the same job for so many years and you're kind of stuck. So let's just say that you are working at BMW in marketing. So you are an expert in coming up with marketing plans for a BMW car. So you might be an expert at BMW at whatever it is that you are doing, but you've never had the experience of working for other companies and learn from other companies how they do it. So you can't really say that you're an expert of the field overall. Is there anything more that I can learn here, or have I learned everything? Have I reached a kind of a plateau where I'm getting repetitive and I'm not learning anything new at all, and it's getting kind of boring and I'm not making the most of my potential? And at the same time, are there perhaps other companies at which I might be able to learn much more and expand my capabilities? One reason why you shouldn't stay at the same company for too long is the risk of dependency, which means simply being dependent on that one company. When you stay at a company for too long, you can be lured into this false sense of security. If you've been working there for 5 or 10 or 15 years, there's a risk that you might feel too secure. You feel that this job is a safe thing, you'll never lose it, and you'll just be able to stay there until the end of, well, not your life, but until your retirement starts. But this is why I said false sense of security, because nowadays there is no such thing as security. Depending on what happens in the company, if there's a reorganization, if they're making a loss instead of a profit, and so on, there could be so many reasons. You could actually lose your job someday. That is just a possibility. That's just a reality. And if you stay at the same company for too long, you might falsely think that your job is secure when it's not the case. And the second risk here related to dependency is that you're so dependent on that company, on the way that things work there, that you start losing your flexibility and agility. You yourself become so rigid, you become part of the furniture in the company. Maybe you have this large table in your office which you feel so comfortable at, and you've arranged everything perfectly, and you have these great colleagues around you, and you just feel like everyone has become a family, and you're so used to this way of life, to your atmosphere, to your surroundings, that it becomes almost impossible for you to move and try out different things. It just becomes too scary. You're so comfortable in your cave, in this little comfort zone of yours. And the next thing is also that when you've been staying for the same company for that long, 5 years, 10 years, and so on, then what you've been practically doing is that you've tailored yourself to the company. Whatever job you're in, whether you're on the production side or in marketing or in accounting or so, you're working for a specific company, you will have tailored all your knowledge and the way you do things to the way that they do things. So you really customize your skills, your skill set to what the company needs, instead of developing a skill set that you actually want to develop for your career. So you are not my career oriented, but instead you are company oriented. So after a while, you might think that, hey, I've been spending so much time tailoring, customizing myself to this company, and if now I leave and join another company, I have to learn everything from the start again, and I don't really feel like doing that. And that is how you become dependent on the company. And of course, it's a win for the company, but you just got to start thinking about whether or not it's in your own best interest. Have I become dependent? Are there signs that I am highly dependent on my current company? Do I have a false sense of security? Am I losing flexibility? Am I getting too comfortable with this corporate family of mine? And also, am I losing adaptability? Am I too highly tailored to this specific company to the extent that I will not be able to reshape myself to adjust to another company? how long is actually too long? How many years is ideal? Some say you should stay at least 2 years, some say 5 years, and so on. This is my opinion, and take it with a grain of salt, and you have to make your own opinion on this. There is no number, because it really depends on the particular job, the industry, but it also depends on what your goal is ultimately. Because even though people think that you should ideally stay in a job for 2 or 3 years, but if that is not in line with what you want to achieve, then why in the world should you stick to it? Is there a case for staying longer? And the answer is yes, if you find your work truly fulfilling. If what you are doing on a daily basis provides you with meaning and provides you with purpose, then those other things that I mentioned before might start to mean less. Like earnings, for example, might not mean as much to you. You might find that what you are doing is making an impact, and in that case, by all means, stay on. So you really got to ask yourself, what is your intention? What is your vision for your career? You have to first determine what you want for yourself. And only if you know that will you be able to answer this question, whether or not you are staying at the same company for too long or not, and whether or not it's time to look outside.